Hello again, we've got another UK legal. This is a knife from a company called Mercury and the model name is 8 Use. Mercury is an Italian company and one that I've really never heard of until these appeared on Heine Haynes. We'll get to that shortly. Now this is one of those knives that it's in the same sort of category, if you like, as a Swiss Army knife. Technically it's a multi-tool, but we call it a knife. They don't really get called multi-tools, although technically they are. If you know what I'm trying to say, it's a multi-function pocket knife. Now, I don't like the term Swiss style knife. To me that just sounds kind of silly. It's like saying an assault style rifle when we're talking about like a semi-automatic civilian rifle. It just seems, you know what I mean, it's just fancy wording to sort of make something sound like something it's not. You know what I mean, when you say Swiss Army knife, that's a Swiss Army knife, that is not. But for what it's worth, it's the same thing. Now, I'm just going to say this one thing here. I'm not calling it a Swiss style knife or a Swiss Army knife, because to be a Swiss Army knife, well, A, it has to be made in Switzerland, obviously. And B, it has to be authorised by the Swiss government for the use in the Swiss military. Now, there's only two companies to my knowledge that has that privilege. That's Victorinox, which you just seen, and Wenger. And of course this is made in Italy. Anyway, so it's called the 8 Use because it's got 8 tools or 8 implements. This one is in the olive wood handle scales. Now if you want to double your money and pay £60, you can get it in stag instead. I'm not so sure just getting stag is worth all that much more money. I mean, you can buy 2 for the price of 1, really, if you were to do that. So I don't really see much point, unless you're really into stag. If that's really your thing, then knock yourself out, I suppose. The construction, fit and finish is not all that great, especially for an Italian made knife. I expected better. For the price of £30, however, can't knock it too hard. So I'm just going to get into the fit and finish straight away so you can see what I'm talking about, and we'll talk about the quality. So if I pick it up, have a look here, don't worry, we will look at all the tools and I will be comparing it to a Swiss Army knife. Straight away you can see the gap. Now it might not look too bad, see, you can see my mat through the scale there. It might not look too bad on the video, it looks considerably worse in person. Now if you're a non-knife person, you're not going to notice, but us knife nuts, we notice these things. The wooden scales are also sort of going over the liner, so the wooden scales, they're not flush with the steel, that's what I'm saying. It's quite flat and smooth, which I do quite like. It has what I assume to be steel pins. I thought it was brass, but no, it's actually steel. It's all smooth, which is absolutely fine. The handle scales themselves are well made. The only thing that lets it down is that gap. And as you can see, it's only held together by the 2 pins, which are pretty thick. So that's not a bad thing. I don't see this thing falling apart, not unless you really are abusing it. Now then, in terms of quality, again it is pretty good. Like I said, it is a lot like a Swiss Army knife, and I will compare that blade directly to a Victorinox. Let me just show you something first. That's quite a lot of blade wobble. It's quite considerable and noticeable. Now if you're using it properly, you're probably not going to notice that too much. That might be an issue if you're whittling, especially if you're putting any significant pressure on it. But if you're just opening boxes within reason, or cutting your apple or whatever, I don't think this is going to be too much of a big deal. In fact, while that main blade is open, let's compare it to a standard sized, I think it's 91mm, I always get confused, I'm sorry. A standard sized Victorinox, this is the, a bit dirty. This is the Ranger, which is the size up from the Huntsman, same size blade as a Huntsman of course. So you can see on that Mercury it's a little bit longer. In fact, let's try to get it exact. Yeah, so it's a little bit longer. I think the Swiss Army knife cutting edge is about 2.5, so that's, you know, it's under 3 inches anyway. And of course you can see the direct comparison. and overall length. And of course, if I close them, you can see that on the Mercury it is considerably longer, which isn't necessarily a good thing because that's taking up more space in the pocket. Now the Ranger here from Victorinox has a better tool set. It's got more tools as the Mercury 8 Use, but you can see in terms of height they're practically identical, in terms of thickness I mean. But this has a lot more tools, and of course the Victorinox is a lot better, the quality is much higher, that's what I'm trying to say. Now then, let's have a look at the tool set. Now you've already seen that main blade, and for my own safety I'm just going to keep that closed. I like to open up all the tools on these to show you what it's got. I like to see it all fanned out myself anyway. When I do this I usually prefer to open the back layer tools first, as it's just easier, and I open the blades last so I don't cut myself. So far you can see that we've got a corkscrew and all, which, actually I'm going to close that now, and all which is not sharp at all. There's no cutting edge, nothing. They've not ground it whatsoever. And it's not even particularly pointy either. But we do have a sewing eye, like I said, a corkscrew. You've got a haggis opener, tin opener. Which is kind of similar to the Wenger style. In fact, they've actually got a British Army knife right here. It's kind of that sort of style as well. So I know a lot of people actually in the UK have these British Army knives. So since it's sitting there, I'll just do a direct comparison. Although I've got to use pliers to open the can opener on this thing because it's so damn large. There you are, just because that was already sitting there. And of course you've got your bottle opener there with the screwdriver, which is kind of a similar sort of style as a Wenger Swiss Army knife. We've got a fairly long saw, which is good. In fact, that looks almost as long as the 111mm Swiss Army knives, the locking models. And as you can see there, that saw cuts on the pull stroke, so you push it, doesn't really cut, you pull it, it cuts. That's what I mean by that, for anyone that didn't actually know. We've got a pair of scissors, which are pretty damn near identical to the ones on a Swiss Army knife once again. In fact, let me just do a comparison there. I think the only difference is the nail nick is on a different side. They look very similar, don't they? Although I'm sure on the Mercury, you can actually take the scissors apart with a screwdriver. I think that's for sharpening. Why they stopped doing that on the Swiss Army knives, I do not know. And the other tool here, of course, the main blade. Now, we've got one more tool, and that is, I'll just close everything else first. The last tool on this, which makes it kind of unique, give me a second. The last tool that makes this one kind of unique is it's got a fork, and that's one of the things that drew me to this, is it's got a fork. Now that's handy if you're out and about and you want to have a takeaway. Now, you're not going to be eating rice from a Chinese or anything like that with that, but I'm sure it'll be fine for chips. Although if you're going to the chippy, you would usually just use your fingers anyway. I mean, I sure would. Unless you've got chips and curry, in which case, yeah, this has got a place. I actually have been meaning to use this fork, I just keep forgetting. Now, maybe you could also pair this up with a dedicated folding knife. Say a Manly Wasp. So there you go, you've got your knife and your fork. Maybe that would be good for camping or something. I don't actually have any other pocket knives with forks on them to compare it with, except this Magnum by Boker hobo knife, which has a much longer shank. The fork is pretty similar in terms of size and shape. Both are 3-prong. The Boker's a little bit bigger, and of course this one's got an integrated bottle opener in the fork. Still need to do a video on that one. That's not mine, that's my girlfriend's. She was nice enough to let me borrow it for this video. Now I do of course want to do more comparisons with this, with Swiss Army knives, and the closest thing to this I have is the, I think this is the Victorinox Evo 17. It's either the 17 or the 18. I get them mixed up. Really the only difference is one of them has a corkscrew and the other one has a Phillips head screwdriver instead. Of course this is the Evo wood. There's slight variations here and there, but you can see here we've got almost the exact same tool set. The corkscrew, the high quality awl. I mean, this is a really good awl, I've used these many times. You've got your Victorinox style can opener with the flathead screwdriver, and your Wenger style bottle opener with the screwdriver, your knife, scissors and a saw. Now this one doesn't have a fork, it's got a nail cleaner. So really you can see that the tool set is almost identical, and honestly for the money I think this is a better option. Now the Victorinox is in walnut, and of course you can get it in a few other, I think you could possibly get it in a few other materials. Obviously you can get it in the standard red Celador. Can you get in other materials? No, I think it's just walnut and red Celador, sorry, getting confused. The olive is not a bad option. I think that's a bit more of an exotic wood. Now the price of the Victorinox is, for that model anyway, is about 50 to 60. I think this is much better for your money. I mean, it's more comfortable, it looks nicer, the wood is nicer, the tools are higher quality, there's no blade wobble, all that sort of thing. I think this will last you much longer than this. That said, if you've got Swiss Army knives, or you've had Swiss Army knives, or you just, you know, you think they're overrated, that's fine, but you want something similar, well, this is an option. As I've said before, I like to collect these things. I want to collect as many different makes, styles from all over the world. You know, I just like collecting knives. Now, there is one other company that I'd like to try out that I've found so far, in the term of, I said I didn't want to say this, but I guess I've got no choice. You know, knives that are kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So far we've got obviously Victorinox Wenger, we've now got Mercury, we've got those ones by Boker Plus, the Tech Tool. I don't remember if I've ever done a video on that one. I found one more though, and it's a company from the Czech Republic. Now I don't actually own any of these. I think it's called Mikvo, M-I-K-V-O. I've not actually found any of their pocket knives for sale in the UK. I have found some for sale in Europe, and I'm yet to acquire one. What I'm hoping to do is get one of those and directly compare all these different, you know, makes together, just to see what options there are out there. Obviously, by far the most common is Victorinox, the Swiss Army knife. You can get them everywhere. Even in places it's hard to get knives, like here in Scotland, you can get them everywhere. Well, within reason anyway. That pretty much concludes this video. Maybe I'll do some tests on this, maybe not, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. They do other they do other models of this with less tools. I mean, you can get some with just the knife, the fork, the tool openers, the awl, and the what's it called, the corkscrew. In fact, they also do an offering where it's just the blade and the saw, and that's a much cheaper model. That's about somewhere between £7 and £10, which seems quite reasonable to me. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.